So, Mary, what exactly do you do for a living? I imagine it must be tough balancing everything on your modest salary. I manage just fine, thank you. They think I'm just some small town woman, a poor mother who can't possibly understand their world. They don't know who I really am, but tonight they will. But let me tell you, what happens next will leave you speechless. I've kept my secret hidden for too long, and now it's time for the world to see who I really am. If you think you know how this is going to end, think again. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the twist. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Let us know where you're watching from and drop a comment to share your thoughts. Do you think Mary's hiding something? Let's get the conversation going. I knew this dinner was supposed to be a moment of celebration. Nathan, my son, had found someone he loved, someone from a world I could only dream of being a part of. And there I was, a small town mother with nothing to offer but a kind heart and a lifetime of hard work. I wasn't like these people. I wasn't supposed to be in their world. The sound of polite laughter fills the room as Charlotte, her son's fiancée, sits next to her, whispering something that makes Mary smile despite the tightness in her chest. She tries to focus on Charlotte's warm presence, but all she can think about are the cold stares of Veronica and David Carter. Veronica looked at me with that polite smile, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes. I could feel her assessing me, measuring me up against her world of high society. And David, he was no better. He kept asking questions like he didn't even care about the answers. It was like he was looking for a reason to place me somewhere beneath him. David leans back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass as his gaze drifts from Mary to his wife. The conversation flows with practiced ease, but Mary feels out of sync, like a wrong note in an otherwise perfect symphony. Tell me, Mary, what do you do for work? I imagine it must be tough managing on a single income, raising Nathan all these years. I'm sure it's a challenge. Mary's smile falters, her heart skipping a beat. She's caught off guard, but she forces herself to remain composed. I wanted to tell him, I wanted to say that I wasn't some helpless woman, that I had built a life from scratch, but I kept my mouth shut, letting his words sting, letting the discomfort settle in my chest. It wasn't the right time, not yet, but I could feel the walls closing in, the tension thickening with each passing moment. Charlotte, noticing the change in Mary's expression, offers a comfort and smile. Mary nods in acknowledgement, grateful for the brief moment of reassurance. But as the conversation shifts, she can't shake the feeling that she's being silently judged. I'd never felt so invisible, yet so exposed at the same time. They didn't see me as Mary Roberts, Nathan's mother. They saw me as something less, something to tolerate until the night was over. The minutes drag on as small talk fills the air. Mary's mind races. She watches Charlotte and Nathan from the corner of her eye, noting how effortlessly they fit in with each other. It's so clear that this world, the world of the Carters, isn't hers. But what if they knew the truth? What if they knew who she really was? I was about to do something I had never done before, something I didn't know if I could ever take back. But I knew I couldn't keep hiding forever. Not tonight. As the conversation grows louder around her, Mary grips the edge of her chair. A plan begins to form in her mind, one that would change everything. But not yet. She wasn't ready to reveal it all. Not yet. The weight of the room presses down on her, the clinking of glasses and soft laughter becoming a distant hum. As she gathers the courage to speak, she takes a deep breath, steeling herself for the storm to come. The dinner table stretches long and wide, decorated with fine china and crystal glasses that catch the soft light of the chandelier above. Mary shifts uncomfortably in her seat, the fabric of her modest dress feeling more out of place than ever in this lavish dining room. The contrast between her and the Carters couldn't be more apparent. Veronica, sitting at the head of the table, surveys her domain with the practiced ease of someone used to having it all. Everything about this house screamed wealth: the marble floors, the silk curtains that cascaded down the windows, the expensive art pieces that adorned the walls like they were treasures meant to be admired from a distance. And here I was, a simple woman from a small town, with a life built on hard work, standing in the shadow of their perfection. I could feel the divide between us, thick as the air in the room. Veronica sets her glass down with a delicate click, her gaze landing on Mary, sharp and calculating. She smiles, too brightly, too sweetly, and leans forward just enough to make Mary feel the weight of her scrutiny. I hear you've raised Nathan on your own, Mary, Must have been a challenge. Not many women manage to keep things together with such limited means. Mary's stomach tightens. The words sting, but she forces a smile, keeping her voice steady. It wasn't always easy, but we made do. Nathan and I have always had each other. Veronica nods slowly, her eyes never leaving Mary's face. The silence that follows feels heavy, like the words unspoken are more important than anything anyone could say aloud. David, noticing the tension, shifts in his chair and clears his throat. We've always prided ourselves on living life to its fullest, traveling, experiencing the best. I'm sure you've never had the chance to enjoy things like that. Mary's heart skips a beat. The comment is blatant, almost cruel in its delivery. It's as if they're trying to remind her of her place, to remind her that no matter how much she's worked, she'll never truly belong here. I knew what they were doing, subtle jabs, veiled insults, wrapped in the guise of concern. They didn't care about me. They only cared about keeping me in my place, where I was supposed to be. Charlotte glances at Mary, sensing the change in the air. Her smile falters for a moment before she quickly covers it up, jumping into the conversation with a forced enthusiasm. Mom, Dad, maybe we should talk about the wedding plans. You know, we're trying to keep it simple, something more intimate, just close family and friends. But Veronica isn't done. She sips her wine, looking at Mary as if she were a puzzle that needed solving. I'm sure you'll be thrilled with the wedding, Mary. It's going to be quite the event. After all, Charlotte comes from a long line of distinguished people. I'm sure you'll feel comfortable surrounded by such elegance, don't you think? Mary's skin prickles. The words distinguished people echo in her mind, mocking her. She wants to snap back, to tell Veronica that her family's so-called distinction is just a facade built on inherited privilege. But she doesn't. Instead, she forces a small smile, feeling the weight of their gaze upon her. They didn't understand. They couldn't possibly understand what it was like to build a life from nothing. And to scrape by day after day, just to make sure your child had food on the table. They were so wrapped up in their world of luxury that they couldn't see how hollow it really was. But I didn't have the energy to explain it. Not tonight. The conversation moves on, but Mary can't shake the feeling of being on trial. Every word she speaks feels weighed against an invisible scale, one that always tips in favor of the Carters. They don't need to say much. Their silence does the talking for them. I could see it now, the way they looked at me, not as an equal, but as someone they tolerated, someone they had to endure because of Nathan. They weren't even pretending anymore. They thought I didn't belong here. And maybe I didn't, but they didn't know me, not really. As the night wears on, the tension builds with each passing minute. Veronica's polite smiles, David's pointed questions, they all blur together, a constant reminder of the divide between their world and hers. The food is exquisite, but Mary hardly notices it. All she can think about is the subtle humiliation, the unspoken judgment that lingers in the air like smoke. And yet, as uncomfortable as I felt, a part of me knew this wasn't the end. Something was going to happen tonight, something that would shift the power dynamic forever. I just didn't know when or how. The evening drags on, and the conversations grow quieter, more polite, but Mary's thoughts are racing. She looks at her son, Nathan, seated beside Charlotte, his face flushed with nervousness. He doesn't see it, doesn't see how badly his family is treating her. But she does, and that's all that matters. By the time dessert is served, Mary is no longer pretending. The mask she wore for the Carters is slipping. She's had enough. The night is far from over, and she's done letting them define her. The dessert plates are cleared away, and the room falls into an awkward silence. The polite clinking of glasses and soft murmur of conversation has faded into the background. Mary feels like she's the last one holding on to a thread of normalcy. Her thoughts are interrupted by David, who suddenly turns to her, his tone light but pointed. So, Mary, tell me, how does a woman like you manage? I can't imagine what it's like to raise a son on your own in a town like that. It must have been hard. Mary feels the tension knot in her stomach. She's been here before, conversations that start off as questions but end up feeling more like a test. The prying, the subtle judgment. It's all too familiar now. The polite tone masks the underlying condescension, and it hits harder than she'd like to admit. The words hit harder than they should have. David's voice was soft, casual, but I knew better than to believe that. They always seemed to speak to me like I was someone they needed to tolerate, someone they were willing to help out of their kindness. They never saw me as an equal, just an obstacle to get past. Mary takes a slow breath, trying to steady herself. She wants to lash out, tell them how hard it was, how they had no idea what it was like to fight every day just to make sure Nathan had food on the table. But she holds her tongue. Tonight, she has a plan, and revealing her anger won't be part of it. It wasn't easy, but we made it work. Nathan and I have always made do then. You do what you have to when you have no other choice. Veronica gives a slight nod as if she's been waiting for this answer. There's a flicker of something in her eyes. Amusement, maybe even pity. The look stings, but Mary keeps her composure, forcing herself not to react. Instead, she looks at Nathan, hoping to see a sign that he's aware of the tension. He's lost in conversation with Charlotte, his face lighting up at something she's saying. He doesn't even notice the sharp undercurrent in the room. I watched him, my son, so caught up in the excitement of the moment. He had no idea how his family was treating me, how they were dismissing me. They didn't know me. They didn't know what it was like to build a life from nothing. David's voice cuts through her thoughts again, this time sharper, more pointed. And what about now, Mary? Now that Nathan's getting married, how do you see your future? I imagine things will change. No more small town, huh? It's not just a question. It's another subtle reminder that she doesn't belong in their world. He's trying to draw attention to her place, and Mary knows it. She's beginning to feel cornered, suffocated by the weight of their judgments. But instead of sinking into the discomfort, she forces a smile, letting the tension roll off her like water off a duck's back. Why did they always insist on reminding me of my place? Did they think they were better than me? That because I didn't live in a mansion, didn't have designer clothes, or travel to five-star resorts, that I was somehow less? I would never let them see how badly they affected me. I had worked too damn hard for this life. Veronica adds in, her voice laced with fake sweetness, as if she suddenly remembered to care. Well, I'm sure you'll love it here in the city. We have all sorts of activities. And of course, you'll have all the best things at your disposal. Mary suppresses a bitter laugh. They were so used to talking down to people like her, acting like their wealth could buy everything, including respect. But that was the thing they didn't know. Respect wasn't for sale. It wasn't something you could buy with money, and it wasn't something they could hand her just because they thought they were better. Their kindness was nothing but a veneer, a polite performance. I had seen it before, the way people like them would toss a few crumbs to make themselves feel better, to make them think they were helping the less fortunate. But what did they really know about struggle? Then what did they know about sacrifice? She looked at Charlotte then, her sweet, perfect Charlotte. And for a moment, Mary's heart softened. She wasn't the enemy here. Charlotte had nothing to do with the way her family treated Mary. In fact, Mary could tell that Charlotte wasn't entirely comfortable with the way her parents were speaking to her. Charlotte's smile was tight, almost forced, but Mary couldn't let her guard down just yet. There was too much at stake. Charlotte was sweet, she meant well, but she didn't understand what it was like to be looked at like you didn't belong. She didn't understand that I couldn't let them see me crumble under their gaze. Not now, not ever. Just then, Charlotte speaks up, trying to steer the conversation away from awkwardness. So, Mom and Dad, have you guys been to that new vineyard down in Sonoma? It's been getting great reviews. The change of topic lightens the mood, but Mary can feel the weight of the previous conversation hanging in the air. The relief is temporary, but it's enough to give her a small moment of peace. They didn't know me, not at all, but tonight I would let them. I wasn't just some poor woman from a small town. I wasn't just Nathan's mother, trying to get through dinner without being noticed. I was something more, and they were about to find out. The evening stretches on, but Mary's thoughts keep drifting back to what she's kept hidden. Her wealth, her success. She had spent so many years building her life, her business. Every step a careful decision, every penny earned with blood, sweat, and determination. But she'd kept it all secret. From Nathan, from Charlotte, from the world. Mary's heart quickened. Why had she hidden it? Fear of being judged, yes, but also pride. She wasn't just a woman who worked hard. She was a woman who had triumphed over every obstacle in her path. And no one, not even her son, knew the truth. I wasn't ashamed of my success, but I had learned long ago that people didn't understand it. People didn't want to know about the late nights, the missed birthdays, the sleepless hours spent building a dream from nothing. They wanted the easy story, the one that fit into their world. And my story didn't fit. Not then, not now. As the evening winds down, Mary looks around at the faces surrounding her. Charlotte's mother continues to talk, oblivious to the storm brewing in Mary's mind. She feels a sudden resolve. It's time. Time to stop pretending, to stop hiding behind the quiet woman they thought she was. She would show them who she really was, not just to make a point, but because they needed to know. Tonight, everything would change. I wouldn't let them define me anymore. They'd see the truth, the whole truth, and if they didn't like it, that was their problem. The minutes pass, and soon enough, the conversation begins to slow. The awkward silences return, broken only by polite murmurs. David and Veronica exchange glances as though waiting for something to happen. Mary can feel it in the air. They were waiting for her to make a mistake, to stumble over her words, to show her true colors. But they didn't know the first thing about her. Not yet. Mary stands up, her chair scraping slightly against the floor. The room goes quiet, the conversation dying as her movements capture everyone's attention. She holds herself taller than she has all evening, a quiet confidence radiating from her that she hadn't allowed herself to show before. I stood up and looked at them, not as an equal, not yet, but not as a servant either. I was standing tall, finally. They couldn't see me as I really was, but they would. Tonight, I've been quiet all evening because I didn't want to make things uncomfortable, but I think it's time for you to understand who I really am. The Carters exchange confused glances, unsure of what Mary is about to say. The words hang in the air, waiting for the truth to cut through the tension. Charlotte looks at her mother, her face a mixture of concern and curiosity, but she doesn't say a word. Veronica and David stare at Mary, their polite expressions faltering just slightly. What are you getting at, Mary? We're just making small talk here. I'm not like you, David. You think I'm just some woman who doesn't understand your world, but you have no idea. I've been building my own world for the past 20 years. I run a business that brings in $40,000 a month. I'm not struggling, I'm not poor, and I'm certainly not beneath you. The room falls into stunned silence. Charlotte's jaw drops, and Veronica blinks as if trying to process what she just heard. David shifts uncomfortably in his seat. It's as if the floor beneath them has just given way. There it was, I had said it, finally. I didn't have to hide anymore. The weight of their gaze pressed down on me, but I didn't flinch. For the first time tonight, I was in control. Veronica's eyes narrow, and she speaks up, her voice carefully controlled. $40,000 a month? That's impressive, Mary. But I'm sure you can understand why we didn't think that would be the case. You don't exactly fit the mold. There it was again, the judgment, the disbelief. They couldn't accept it, not even now. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter what they thought. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. David shifts in his chair again, clearing his throat awkwardly. Well, that's certainly a surprise, but, money doesn't buy class, Mary. No, it doesn't. But it sure helps when you're trying to make your way in the world. And I don't need your approval. I could feel their eyes on me, dissecting my every move. They didn't know what to say, what to do, now that the truth was out. But I could see it in their faces. They were embarrassed. Embarrassed that I had dared to not only exist in their world, but to challenge their perception of it. David clears his throat, attempting to regain some semblance of control over the situation. He leans back in his chair, the facade of politeness creeping back into his voice. Well, it's certainly impressive, Mary. But, with wealth comes responsibility. The lifestyle you must maintain. It's not just about money, is it? The words drip with condescension, but Mary doesn't flinch. She's heard it all before, the dismissals, the veiled criticisms. She had expected it. The world she had built wasn't easy, but it was hers, and that made all the difference. They didn't see it. They didn't understand what it was like to fight for every single thing you had, to build something with your own hands and sweat, to sacrifice your time, your energy, everything you had to make something work. They were so wrapped up in their money, their clubs, their vacations, they didn't know what it meant to actually work for a living. Veronica, still composed but with a sharp edge to her words, speaks next, her tone dripping with polite mockery. Yes, but with that kind of income, Mary, I imagine it's easy to overlook the finer details, like, I don't know, cultural appreciation, or perhaps even the way you present yourself in social settings. The comment is subtle, but the intent is clear. Veronica is suggesting that Mary doesn't fit the image of what someone with that kind of money should be. It's a calculated remark designed to expose her as out of place. There it was, the first real insult. They didn't think I belonged here. And when that's exactly what they wanted to remind me of. I wasn't dressed in designer clothes, I didn't know the right wines, and my idea of luxury wasn't theirs. But I had learned long ago that luxury didn't have to look a certain way. It didn't have to be a brand name or a price tag. It was something deeper, something more powerful. Mary holds her gaze steady on Veronica, her smile never wavering. She could feel the anger rising in her chest, but she quelled it, choosing instead to keep her voice calm and controlled. I don't need your approval, Veronica. I don't need to fit into your image of what success looks like. I've built my own life in my own way, and that's all that matters to me. There's a brief, stunned silence as Veronica processes the response. For a moment, it seems like she might say something else, but she's silenced by the unexpected strength in Mary's words. Instead, she picks up her glass of wine, the edges of her smile curling into something less polite, more calculating. David, sensing the awkwardness, quickly changes the subject, but Mary can't shake the feeling that something has shifted. The Carters might still look down on her, but she had drawn the line. And from now on, they would have to deal with her on her terms. For the first time tonight, I felt like I was truly standing up for myself. For so long, I had allowed people like them to define me, to make me feel small, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I had earned everything I had. And if they didn't like it, that was their problem, not mine. As the conversation shifts again, the energy in the room remains tight. David continues to steer the discussion towards mundane topics, asking about Mary's day-to-day life and trying his best to mask his discomfort. But the cracks in the Carters' perfect facade are starting to show. They're not used to someone standing up to them, and they certainly aren't used to someone like Mary calling their bluff. The dinner continues, but the tension between Mary and the Carters is undeniable. Veronica's questions become less pointed, though still laced with veiled insults. She tries to disguise her contempt, but it's there. Every time she looks at Mary, it's clear she's sizing her up, trying to figure out how to fit her into her neatly organized world. They were trying to break me, I could tell. They wanted me to feel like I didn't belong, like I wasn't worthy of sitting at the same table. But I wasn't going to let them get to me, not anymore. They didn't know who they were dealing with. And just as the evening seems to be winding down, as the soft chatter fades into the background, Mary sees an opportunity to stop playing their game, to reveal once and for all who she really was. The conversation shifts to a topic Mary isn't prepared for. David, sensing the lull in the atmosphere, takes the opportunity to introduce a new question, one that cuts right to the heart of the evening's tension. You know, Mary, I can't help but wonder, with the kind of income you're talking about, how do you manage? How do you keep it all balanced? I imagine that lifestyle requires a certain level of refinement. Mary freezes, the question hitting her like a dart. It's more than just a subtle jab now. It's an invitation to dive deeper into her life, to expose her, to make her feel small. The weight of the words presses down on her shoulders, but she fights the urge to react. She forces a calm smile, keeping her composure intact. I knew what he was doing. They wanted me to falter, to let them see the cracks. They wanted to expose me, catch me off guard, make me seem less than I was, but they didn't realize one important thing. I wasn't going to play by their rules. Not anymore. Veronica, ever the perfect hostess, leans forward, her eyes narrowing just a little as she joins in. Yes, Mary, we've always believed that wealth comes with a certain responsibility. It's not just about the money, is it? It's about how you carry yourself, how you present your success to the world. The subtle implication stings. It's a reminder of everything Mary has fought against in her life, the judgment, the expectations, the belief that success must fit a very specific mold. She wants to snap back, to point out their hypocrisy, but she holds back, not yet, not until the right moment. They thought they knew everything. They thought they had the right to lecture me, to judge me based on their limited perspective. But I wasn't about to let them win. They wanted me to shrink, to make myself smaller in their eyes, to confirm their superiority. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was stronger than that. The conversation continues, but Mary's mind is racing. She knows what she has to do. The time has come to end the charade, to stop pretending she's something she's not. I had played the part of the humble and poor mother for long enough, but what they didn't know was that I was more than what they saw. I had worked hard to get here. I had earned everything. And I was about to show them exactly what that meant. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in as Mary prepares herself. She stands up, pushing her chair back with a deliberate motion. The sound echoes through the room, grabbing everyone's attention. For a brief moment, everything stops. The laughter dies. The Carters look at her, their faces a mixture of curiosity and confusion. She takes a deep breath. Her voice is calm, steady, but there's a new energy in it, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. I've been quiet tonight because I thought I had to be. I thought I had to play along with your games, but I'm done with that. You think you know me, but you don't. I'm not who you think I am. The words hit the air like a thunderclap, and for the first time all evening, the Carter falls silent. Charlotte, who had been nervously watching the interaction, looks up at Mary with a mix of surprise and something else. Regret, maybe. Her eyes flicker between Mary and her parents, sensing the tension. They didn't know it, but they had underestimated me. They thought they could break me with their subtle slats and condescending remarks, but they didn't realize that I was far stronger than they ever gave me credit for. What's this about, Mary? What are you trying to say? I'm saying that I've earned everything I have. I've worked my ass off to get where I am, and you've been treating me like I don't belong in your world. Well, let me make something clear. I don't need to fit into your world. I've built my own. David's face tightens, and Veronica's smile falters, replaced with a cool mask of disapproval. They weren't expecting this. They weren't expecting Mary to stand up for herself. Not in this way. Their faces twisted in disbelief. They couldn't comprehend what I was saying. But I knew deep down I had won. I had taken back control, and no matter how they tried to spin it, the truth was out. I wasn't just some simple woman they could overlook. I was more than that. Charlotte looks at her mother, and then at Mary. She opens her mouth as if to say something, but then stops. For the first time, she's caught between the world she's always known and the truth that Mary just revealed. The room is thick with tension. The Carters are still processing what Mary just revealed, and Charlotte looks between her family and Mary, her expression caught somewhere between confusion and understanding. David and Veronica sit frozen, unable to respond, their surprise reflected in the way they shift uncomfortably in their seats. I could see it in their eyes, their discomfort, their disbelief. They couldn't fathom the idea that I might be someone they had to reckon with, that I wasn't just some background character in their perfect little narrative. But I wasn't done, not yet. Mary stands there, letting the silence stretch on, watching as the Carters squirm under the weight of her words. She takes a deep breath, letting the calmness settle over her. They weren't going to break her. They weren't going to make her shrink back into the shadow of their judgments. I wasn't angry, not yet. What I felt deep down was something colder, something sharper. It wasn't explosive rage. It was a quiet rage, a rage that came from years of being underestimated, from years of letting people like them walk all over me. Tonight, that stops. Tonight, I'm in control, and it feels good. David opens his mouth to speak, but Mary holds up a hand, stopping him before he can say a word. No, you don't get to speak right now, not until you listen. You don't get to dismiss me, not anymore. I'm tired of playing your game. David's jaw tightens, but he's smart enough to hold his tongue. Veronica looks like she's about to respond, but Mary silences her with a sharp look. Veronica, with her polished smile, her fake politeness, she thought she could pull the strings, manipulate the situation. But I was done. Done being polite, done being small. I was done apologizing for not fitting into their narrow world. There's a shift in the room as Mary takes a seat again, but this time she does it with purpose, her posture straight, her eyes unwavering. The room feels smaller now, as if the walls are closing in on the Carters. They can't escape the truth anymore. Veronica shifts in her chair, trying to regain some semblance of control, but her voice is shakier than before. Mary, we didn't mean to offend you. It's just, we were trying to understand your situation. Oh, I'm sure you were. trying to figure out how someone like me could manage to survive in a world like yours, trying to figure out what I was doing here. But here's the truth, Veronica. I'm here because my son loves me. I'm here because I raised him right. And I'm here because I've worked harder than either of you could ever imagine to get to where I am. The silence that follows is deafening. The Carters exchange uncomfortable glances, but Mary doesn't look away. She doesn't let up. For once, she feels the power shift in her favor. It felt good. It felt right. To finally speak my truth. To finally let them see me. Not just as Nathan's mother, not as someone they could look down on, but as a woman who had fought for every single thing she had. Charlotte, still quiet, looks at her mother, then back at Mary. Her eyes are wide, as if she's just realizing something she hadn't before. The weight of Mary's words seems to settle on her, too, though she's hesitant to speak up. Mom, maybe we should listen. Mary has worked hard and she's right. We don't know her story. David shoots Charlotte a sharp look, but she doesn't back down. Mary's eyes flicker to Charlotte, a small, fleeting smile on her lips. For the first time tonight, someone on the other side of the table seems to understand. And for the first time in years, Mary doesn't feel so alone. It was a small moment of victory, nothing big, nothing dramatic. But it was a moment where I realized something. It wasn't just about proving something to the Carters. It was about proving something to myself, that I didn't need their approval, that I didn't need to hide who I was anymore. The conversation falters for a moment, the awkwardness hanging thick in the air. David, ever the pragmatist, clears his throat again, attempting to redirect the focus, but it's clear now that the dynamic has shifted. Mary is no longer the underdog in the conversation. She's no longer the one being judged. As the night continues, Mary remains calm and composed, answering questions only when necessary, and making sure her boundaries are known. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't apologize. She simply exists, strong, unbothered, and in control. It wasn't the confrontation I had expected. It wasn't the fireworks I had imagined in my head. But it didn't need to be. This was enough. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. And not just by Charlotte, not just by Nathan, but by myself. And that was all that mattered. As the evening winds to a close, Mary stands up to leave, offering a simple, courteous goodbye. But as she turns to walk out the door, she knows this night will be one they never forget. This was only the beginning. The night is drawing to a close. The Carters, still in shock from Mary's earlier revelation, continue to sit in silence. Charlotte, who has been quietly observing the shift in energy, stands as Mary makes her way to the door. There's a heavy air of unease surrounding the room as the sound of heels on the marble floor echoes softly in the distance. As Mary heads toward the front door, David finally speaks, his voice forced, strained by the weight of everything unsaid. "Mary, wait!" Mary halts, her hand still resting on the doorknob. She turns slowly, her posture unchanged, but there's a quiet power radiating from her now. She doesn't need to ask why. She already knows. David's tone has shifted, no longer dismissive, but rather measured, almost apologetic. "I think we need to talk about this. We're not used to people like you, people who don't fit the mold we're used to. It's not a criticism, it's just unexpected. But it's clear you've earned what you have, and for that, I respect you." There's a long pause. Mary looks at him, at the man who had earlier dismissed her with subtle jabs, who had tried to diminish her, and now he was admitting a begrudging respect. She knows this isn't an apology, but it's close enough for her to know she's won. She holds his gaze for a moment longer, letting the silence stretch just a little bit. "It's not about respect, David. It's about honesty. I didn't come here tonight to win your approval. I came to be myself, and I'll always be myself, whether you respect it or not." David's jaw tightens, but he nods, finally understanding the weight of her words. There's a moment of recognition between them, not full acceptance, but a shared acknowledgement of the divide between them that's been bridged, if only just a little. Charlotte walks over, her footsteps softer than her parents', her face a mixture of relief and confusion. She stops a few steps from her mother and father, her eyes searching Mary's face as if trying to understand everything that just transpired. "Mary, I didn't know what you'd been through or what you've built. I wish I'd understood sooner." Mary glances at Charlotte, her expression softening. Despite everything, Charlotte is her son's fiancée. She's someone who truly doesn't understand the weight of the judgments from her family, but she's not entirely at fault. You couldn't have known, Charlotte, but I didn't need you to. You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you're with Nathan. That's all that matters to me. Charlotte steps closer, her eyes welling with tears. She touches Mary's arm gently, almost as though she's afraid to reach out. I didn't want them to make you feel like this. I didn't want you to feel like you weren't good enough. But I understand now. I see it. I'm sorry for what they've put you through. Mary's heart tugs at the sincerity in Charlotte's voice. The young woman was caught in the middle of a world she didn't fully control, and despite her privilege, she had no idea how deeply those around her could hurt others. Mary gives her a small smile, shaking her head gently. It's not your fault, Charlotte. Your parents are who they are. You can't change that. But don't apologize for them. You've done nothing wrong. Charlotte nods slowly. A weight lifting from her shoulders, she gives Mary a final, grateful look before returning to her parents, who have yet to fully recover from the emotional shift that Mary's revelation caused. Mary walks towards the door, feeling the tension of the evening begin to unravel with each step. The Carters might still look at her with skepticism, but that was their problem now. For the first time in her life, she didn't care about their approval. She had lived in their shadow long enough. As she steps outside, the cool night air wraps around her, and she takes a deep breath, letting it fill her lungs. She hadn't realized how much she'd been holding in until the release of stepping away from that room. For years, she had lived under the weight of being underestimated, but not anymore, not after tonight. I walked out of that house feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom, not just from the Carters, but from the burden I'd placed on myself. I didn't need their approval, their validation. I had built a life on my own terms, and that was enough. The sound of her car door shutting echoes in the quiet of the night as she starts the engine. But before she drives away, Mary takes a final look at the house behind her. She knows this isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. Tonight, she had shown them who she really was, and they would remember it for a long time. The drive home is quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the car engine and the rhythm of the tires on the road. Mary's mind replays the events of the evening, the way the Carters had looked at her with shock, disbelief, and, if she were being honest with herself, respect. But there was still a lingering question in her mind. Would they truly change? Would their perceptions of her shift? Or would they continue to judge her based on their narrow view of success? Her hands grip the steering wheel, knuckles white as the weight of the night settles on her shoulders. She wasn't angry, no. The anger had been replaced by something else, something colder, something more determined. She didn't need them to change, she just needed them to see her. The truth was out now. I had nothing left to hide. $40,000 a month. I said it, and the words hung in the air like a truth that couldn't be erased. And still, I could hear their voices in my head, their disbelief, their judgment. They thought I was lying, maybe, Jen. Or maybe they didn't believe that someone like me could have earned so much. They didn't know how many late nights it had taken, how many sacrifices, how much hard work it had cost me to get to this point. She pauses at a stoplight, the red glow reflecting in her rearview mirror. The silence of the night is almost soothing, but her mind won't let go. The numbers were simple, clear: $40,000. The sum of her efforts, the sum of her success. But it was more than just the money, it was the life she had built from scratch. And that was something the Carters couldn't understand. They looked at me like I was something less because I didn't wear the right clothes or speak the right way. They assumed that because I came from a small town, I didn't know what success looked like. They thought because I didn't flaunt my wealth, I didn't deserve it. But I wasn't like them. I didn't need a label or a designer bag to prove I had something to offer. The money wasn't the point. It was the journey, the struggle, the triumph over it all. Mary's hands loosen their grip on the wheel as she drives past the familiar streetlights of her town. She's almost home now, and for the first time in hours, she feels herself exhale. The weight of the evening is still there, but it doesn't feel as heavy anymore. She thinks about her son, Nathan. What would he think of all this? Would he finally understand the depth of his mother's strength? She knows he doesn't see it, not yet, but he will. One day he'll realize that it wasn't just the things she had built for him, but the way she had built herself. I hadn't been the perfect mother, but I had always done my best. I had given him everything I had, even when it felt like I had nothing left to give. And now, with my wealth exposed, would he look at me differently? Would he still see me as the mother who did everything for him, or would he see me as someone else, a stranger, a person he didn't fully understand? Pulling into her driveway, Mary shuts off the engine. She sits there for a moment, the stillness of the night wrapping around her like a blanket. The house in front of her is small, modest, but it's hers. Every inch of it, every piece of furniture, every corner, was a testament to the years of hard work she had put in. She had built this home with her own hands. She had created this life. The front door opens and Nathan steps outside, his face lighting up when he sees her car. Mary can't help but smile. For all the tension of the evening, seeing him like this, so full of life, reminds her of why she had done it all in the first place. "Hey, Mom, how was it? How'd it go with Charlotte's family?" Mary steps out of the car, her smile fading just slightly. She wants to tell him everything, every detail of the night. She wants to explain to him why she's been so guarded all these years. But something holds her back. She knows he isn't ready for the full truth yet. Not tonight. "It went fine. It went better than I expected." Nathan tilts his head, sensing the hesitation in her voice. He looks at her closely, his expression softening. "You sure? You don't seem like you're telling me the whole story." Mary pauses for a moment, considering her words carefully. She wants to tell him everything, but it's not the right time. She'll have to wait until he's ready to see the truth, until he understands the sacrifices she's made. She's ready, but he's not yet. "I'll tell you all about it soon, okay? But tonight, I'm just glad to be home." Nathan nods, a quiet understanding passing between them. He doesn't press her any further, and Mary feels a small sense of relief. He'll understand one day. He has to. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need to be seen by their standards. All I needed was to be seen by my son, to have him understand that everything I've done, every sacrifice, was for him. And maybe, just maybe, one day he'd see me for who I really was. Not just his mother, but someone who had fought for every inch of her life. Someone who had fought for him. As Mary walks into her house, she takes a moment to look around. The kitchen, the living room, all the familiar sights of home. It's not much, but it's hers. And that, for now, is enough. The night may have been filled with uncomfortable truths, but she knows that in the end, she has something they'll never understand. She has her own story, her own strength, and that's worth more than anything they could ever offer her. The next few days pass in a blur of quiet tension. Mary finds herself going through the motions of daily life, working, cleaning, cooking, while her mind replays the events of the night she spent with the Carters. She hasn't heard from them since that evening, but she knows it's only a matter of time before they reach out. After all, things had changed between them. They couldn't unsee what they had learned about her. The phone rings early one morning, breaking the stillness of the house. Mary grabs it quickly, her heart skipping a beat, as she recognizes the number. Charlotte's. She hasn't called since the dinner. I knew this call was coming. I had expected it, but that didn't make it any easier. Charlotte had been caught in the middle of her parents' judgment, and now she was reaching out, but for what? Mary answers, trying to mask the hesitation in her voice. "Hello?" "Hi, Mary, it's Charlotte. I've been thinking about what happened the other night. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing, and, well, I need to apologize for my parents. I don't know how to explain them, but I hope you know that wasn't my intention. They didn't mean to make you feel like that." Mary feels a tight knot in her stomach. Charlotte's words are kind, but they don't change the reality of what happened that evening. Still, she doesn't want to hurt the girl. She's Nathan's fiancée after all, and deep down, Mary knows Charlotte didn't intend for any of this to go down the way it did. "It's okay, Charlotte. You don't need to apologize for them. I understand what you were trying to do, but don't worry about me. I'm fine." There is a pause on the other end, and Mary can almost hear the uncertainty in Charlotte's silence. I don't know what happened with my parents. They've never been like that before, and I don't want you to feel like you're not welcome in our family. I want you to be a part of it, Mary. I know Nathan does too. He's been worried about you, and I know he wants you to feel accepted. I don't want you to think less of him because of what happened." Her words were soft, earnest. She was trying, and I could tell, but the damage had been done, and The cracks in their perfect world had been exposed, and I wasn't sure if we could ever go back. Still, I wasn't going to let it destroy Nathan. He was the only thing that mattered now. Charlotte, I don't want to cause any more stress. I'm not mad at you or Nathan, but your family, they need to understand that just because I'm not like them doesn't mean I'm less than them. I've spent my life proving that to people, and I'm not going to stop now. I don't expect them to change, and I'm not asking them to. I'm just telling you and them that I'm not going anywhere. I'm part of this family whether they like it or not. There's a long pause, and Mary wonders if she said too much. But then Charlotte speaks again, her voice soft but resolute. I know, and I want you to know that I respect you for it. I do, and I don't expect my parents to change overnight. I just hope they see you for who you really are because you deserve that. And Nathan deserves that. Mary smiles softly, a quiet sense of relief washing over her. Charlotte's words are a balm to the bruising reality of the last few days. But it's not just Charlotte that Mary has to worry about. It's the rest of her family, David and Veronica, the Carters. They were a force to be reckoned with, and Mary wasn't sure what kind of fallout she'd face from them. Charlotte was right. Nathan deserved to know the truth, but so did the Carters. I had made my stance clear, but they needed to hear it again. They needed to see that I wasn't just some background character in their world. I had my own life. No, and I would no longer let anyone make me feel small for it. The days that follow are quiet, but there's an underlying tension in the air. Mary can feel the distance growing between her and the Carters, and she knows that whatever happens next will change everything. She doesn't want to break ties with Nathan's fiancé or her son, but she also knows that she can't continue to let them live in a bubble where the world outside is ignored, where real people like her, people who fought for everything, are dismissed as less. Her thoughts are interrupted when Nathan walks through the door one evening, looking exhausted but eager to talk. He doesn't say much at first, just collapses on the couch beside her. Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what happened with Charlotte's family, and I don't know, I feel like I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. His words cut through me. I had spent so many years trying to shield him from the harsh truths of the world, trying to protect him from the ugliness of judgment. But now he was seeing it. He was seeing the way his family treated me. And I wasn't sure if that hurt more than the way they had treated me all along. You don't need to apologize, Nathan. This isn't your fight. It's mine. I've spent my whole life proving myself to people who think they know better. But I'm not angry. I'm just tired of pretending. Nathan looks at her, his eyes searching for something. He doesn't understand it all, not yet, but there's a new understanding between them. He finally nods, as if accepting something he didn't fully grasp before. I get it now, Mom. I really do. I didn't understand before, but I do now. The truth had always been right in front of him, but he needed time. He needed to see what I had always known. And now he did, but there was still the question of what came next. What happened after all the cards were laid on the table? What happened after the Carters knew the truth? The phone rings early the next morning, its shrill tone breaking the quiet of the house. Mary, still waking from a restless night, reaches for the receiver without looking at the caller ID. She already knows who it is. I had been expecting this call. After Charlotte's apology, I knew it wouldn't be long before David or Veronica decided to reach out. They couldn't just let it go. They had to fix things. To make sure I understood my place. She answers the phone, her voice steady but guarded. Hello. Mary, this is David. I wanted to speak with you about what happened the other night. It's been weighing on my mind, and, well, I think it's time we cleared the air. Mary feels a cold shiver run down her spine. She knows this conversation won't be easy, but she's ready for it. She's not the same woman she was when she first entered their world, trying to please them, trying to hide her strength. She's ready now. I've been waiting for this, David, but I'm not sure what there is to clear. The truth is out, and I don't think there's much left to say. I don't need your approval. I never did. There's a long pause on the other end, and for a moment Mary wonders if David will continue with his usual arrogance, or if he'll admit that this time he's met someone he can't control. Finally, he speaks again, his tone softer now. Mary, I need you to understand that it's not about approval, it's about respect. You see, we didn't grow up the same way. Our lives, they've been different, and I'm not sure how to navigate that, how to accept that you're more than just Nathan's mother. You're right, I underestimated you, but there's more to this than meets the eye. His words were softer now, more measured. He was trying to be the bigger person, trying to show some level of humility. But I wasn't fooled. I had seen this before, the effort to get me to see things their way, to make me feel like I owed them something. I don't need your respect, David. What I need is for you to see me for who I am, not as some poor woman you feel sorry for. I've worked for everything I have, I've earned it, and I won't apologize for that. David lets out a long sigh, and Mary can hear him shift in his chair. The sound of him trying to collect his thoughts. Then, it's not about your money, Mary. It's about family. It's about how we've always done things. And I can't pretend that what you've built fits into our world. I can't pretend it doesn't change things. There it was, the truth finally slipping out. It wasn't about me. It was about them, about their world, their rules. And they couldn't accept that someone like me, someone from the outside, had broken those rules. Mary's grip tightens on the phone, but she doesn't let her anger show. She keeps her voice steady, her words deliberate. I didn't ask to be part of your world, David. I didn't ask for your approval. All I've ever wanted was to be accepted as myself. I'm not going to apologize for the life I've built, for the person I am. You either accept me for who I am or you don't. But I'm not going to hide anymore. There's a long silence on the other end. Mary can hear David's breath, steady but unsure. For the first time, he's at a loss for words, and that, to Mary, feels like a victory. I can't say that I fully understand everything, but I'll try. For Charlotte, for Nathan, I'll try to see you differently. For Charlotte, for Nathan. He was trying. That was all I could ask for. But part of me knew that this wasn't the end. This wasn't going to be the happy resolution I'd hoped for. There were too many years of judgment, too many assumptions for it to be that easy. Mary feels a strange sense of closure, but also an unease. She knows that this conversation, like everything else with the Carters, isn't over. There's more to unravel, more to reveal. But for now, she's made her point. That's all I can ask for, David. But remember, this isn't about fitting in. It's about respect, and that's something I've earned, not something you can give me. David hesitates for a moment before finally answering. I'll think about what you've said, Mary. I'll try. That's all I can promise right now. Mary nods, though he can't see her. The conversation is done, but something in her feels different. She feels lighter, freer than she has in a long time. Maybe this was all I needed. Not their approval, not their acceptance, but the understanding that I didn't need them to validate me anymore. I had earned everything I had on my own, and that was enough. As the call ends, Mary sits back in her chair, the weight of the conversation sinking in. She doesn't know what the future holds with the Carters. She doesn't know if they'll ever truly accept her, but she's not going to worry about that. She's done proving herself. She's done pretending to be someone she's not. Mary stands up, feeling the familiar rush of strength return to her. For the first time in years, she feels like she can finally breathe. The days that follow David's phone call are filled with an odd quietness. Mary finds herself waiting almost expectantly for the next move from the Carters. The weight of the conversation still lingers in her thoughts. David's words, though seemingly respectful, had left something unresolved. She knew this wasn't over. They had accepted her for the moment, but they hadn't truly accepted her yet, not deep down. But there's more at play now, more than she knows. The call from David had only been the beginning, the first ripple in a much larger storm. And she has yet to understand how deep the waters of the Carters' world run. One evening, a week after the phone call, the doorbell rings. Mary isn't expecting anyone. It's a rare occasion that someone visits her at home, especially at this hour. She opens the door cautiously, her eyes squinting slightly against the dim light outside. Standing at her doorstep is Charlotte, holding a small envelope in her hands, her face a mixture of discomfort and determination. Mary, I need to talk to you. I could tell something was wrong just by looking at her. Charlotte wasn't one for drama or confrontation, but the urgency in her voice was unmistakable. I stepped aside, letting her in without saying a word. This wasn't a casual visit, I could tell that much. Charlotte steps inside, the heavy atmosphere in the room mirroring her unease. She holds out the envelope, and Mary takes it without hesitation. Her eyes flicker briefly to Charlotte, whose gaze is fixed on the ground. She can feel the tension between them. What is this, Charlotte? I'm sorry, Mary. This is something I didn't know about, something that my parents never told me. It's about your house. They've been trying to buy it, Mary. They've been making offers to you behind your back. Mary's stomach drops. She stares at the envelope in her hand, her heart racing. It's happening again. The Carters trying to control her life, her future, like they had tried with everything else. She had thought they were done with her, that they had accepted her. But the truth is, they never really had. They never thought she could have something they wanted, something they could use to their advantage. I had known something was off. There were too many questions left unanswered, too many subtle jabs, too much suspicion from them. But this was different. This was their true face, and it wasn't one I was willing to tolerate any longer. She opens the envelope slowly, the paper inside crinkling slightly as she pulls out a series of documents, real estate offers, appraisals, and a cover letter from the Carter's lawyer. The offer was high, far higher than the value of her house. It was an offer she couldn't refuse, a sum designed to pressure her into selling. But what struck her the most was the date on the letter, the date of the first Amorcenter. It was months ago. They had been planning this all along. They'd been watching me, waiting for the right moment to move in. They wanted my house, and they thought they could get it with money. But I wasn't going to let them take anything from me. Not my home, not my life, not now, not ever. How long have they been doing this, Charlotte? Since I first introduced Nathan to you. They wanted to buy the property, but they knew you'd never sell. So they started making their offers to you behind your back, hoping you'd eventually cave in. They thought if they offered you enough money, you'd take it. But I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Mary stands there for a long moment, the documents in her hands suddenly feeling heavy. This is the truth. The Carters hadn't just been judgmental, they had been manipulating her all along, using her as a pawn in their game of control. But she would not be controlled anymore. I had always known they saw me as something to be managed, something to be controlled. But this was a new level of manipulation. They hadn't just underestimated me. They'd thought they could buy me, but I wouldn't let them. Not now, not ever. Mary looks at Charlotte, her expression softening slightly, though the anger is still there, simmering beneath the surface. Charlotte looks torn, as though she's trying to find the right words to fix everything, but she knows there's no easy fix here. I need to think about this, Charlotte. You need to tell them that their offer isn't just about money. It's about control. They've been playing me this whole time, and I'm done letting them do it. Charlotte nods, her eyes brimming with guilt, but she doesn't say anything else. She doesn't know how to fix what's been broken, how to make amends for her family's actions. She can't, and Mary knows it. I'll talk to them, Mary, I will. But you have to understand this isn't just about the house. It's about their control over everything. They never believed you were on the same level as them. They thought if they offered you enough money, you'd walk away quietly. But they don't understand you. They don't understand how much you fought for everything you have. She was right. They didn't understand, and they would never understand. But I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not now, not after everything I had built. Charlotte turns to leave, but before she steps outside, she pauses, looking back at Mary. I'm sorry, Mary. I never wanted any of this. I want you to know that I'm on your side. You're family to me, and I don't want this to tear us apart. Mary watches her go, the weight of the situation settling in once more. She knows that this isn't the end, that the Carters aren't done with her. But now, Mary has a plan, she has her own strength, and she's not going to let them take her home or her dignity without a fight. The next few days are filled with a growing sense of purpose. Mary feels the full weight of everything she's been through, the judgments, the manipulation, the constant need to prove herself. But now, for the first time, she's done trying to fit into their world. She doesn't need to be accepted by the Carters. What she needs is to protect what's hers, her family, her home, and her peace. The phone rings again, late one afternoon. It's Charlotte. I'd been expecting this call too. Charlotte's words weighed on me, but I couldn't let them consume me. What was done was done. I had to stand my ground now. Hello, Mary. I've been talking to my parents, and I think it's time we all met, together. I don't want this to keep going the way it is. It's affecting everything. I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe we can find a way to fix this. I'll be there with you, I promise. Mary's heart beats a little faster. She knows this is the moment of truth. The time for silence, for holding back, is over. It's time to face the Carters head on. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This wasn't even about the Carters. This was about me, about who I had become after years of struggling, hiding, and shrinking in their world. I had spent so much of my life feeling like I wasn't enough, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I had to let them see that. I had to show them the power I had in my own life. The meeting is set for 2 days later. Mary spends the time preparing, not just mentally, but emotionally. She knows this will be the hardest confrontation of her life. But there's no turning back. It's time to put everything on the line. When the day arrives, Mary pulls up to a small, quiet park in the middle of the town. It's a place where the noise of the world can be silenced, where nothing distracts from the truth. She gets out of the car, the cool breeze against her skin offering a momentary sense of peace. But her nerves are still tight, her stomach churning. Charlotte is already there, standing by the park bench, her face a mix of nervousness and anticipation. And across from them, standing a few feet away, are David and Veronica. They look almost like strangers to her now, as if the world they once shared is no longer hers to be a part of. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I wasn't going to let them control this anymore. I wasn't going to let them think they could walk all over me, all over my family. I was done with that, and I would not apologize for who I was or what I had. Mary walks toward them, the three Carters turning as she approaches. David looks as composed as ever, but there's something in his eyes now, uncertainty. Veronica, too, is poised, but her earlier smugness is gone. Charlotte stands between them, as if trying to hold the fragile threads of her family together. I'm done pretending. You wanted to buy my house. You wanted to control my life. You wanted to make me feel small. But I'm not afraid of you anymore. The words hang in the air, raw and unyielding. There's no turning back now. Mary continues, her voice stronger with each word. You don't understand me, and you never did. You didn't understand what it took to get here, to fight for everything I have. You didn't understand how hard it was to raise Nathan, to make sure he had a better life than I did. But I've done it, on my own, without your help, without your approval, and I don't need it. For the first time in my life, I felt the power of my own voice. The Carters weren't just my son's family. They were the ones who had always held the power, the influence. But now, in this moment, I realized they couldn't control me. Not anymore. I had built my own life. I had earned my place. David takes a step forward, his usual bravado faltering just slightly. Mary, we didn't mean to hurt you. We didn't mean to make you feel unworthy, but this is difficult. You've shaken us, and it's not easy for us to accept change. It was their way of apologizing, of trying to absolve themselves of their guilt. But I wasn't looking for their apology. I wasn't here to make them feel better. Mary looks at Charlotte, her expression softening for a moment. I'm not mad at you, Charlotte. You didn't ask for any of this. I'm not angry with you. I just want you to know that I won't be treated like I don't belong, not by anyone. Charlotte nods, a tear slipping down her cheek. It's a moment of clarity for her, a realization that Mary wasn't just her son's mother. She was a force in her own right. Veronica steps forward, her eyes narrowing, but this time there's something different in her stance, a shift. The condescension is still there, but it's tempered with something else, recognition. I may not agree with everything you've done, Mary, but I see you now. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that was enough. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The truth was out, and now they knew. The silence between them stretches out, but this time it's not awkward. It's not uncomfortable, it's something else. It's the beginning of understanding. For the first time, Mary feels like she's seen, not by everyone, but by the people who matter most. And the next few weeks are quiet, but the change is palpable. Mary feels different, like the weight of the past has finally been lifted. She still sees the Carters at family gatherings, still shares moments with Nathan and Charlotte, but things are no longer the same. The power dynamics have shifted, and though it's subtle, she knows that the way they look at her has changed. They see her now, not just as Nathan's mother, but as someone who deserves respect. The Carters might not have fully understood me, but that was okay. The only one who needed to understand was me. And for the first time in years, I could finally say that I did. Mary walks into her home one evening, Nathan sitting on the couch reading a book. She takes a deep breath, knowing that the future is uncertain, but that she's ready for whatever comes next. Nathan, I just wanted to tell you, no matter what happens, I've always done my best for you, and I always will. Nathan looks up, his eyes filled with gratitude. I know, Mom, I know, and I'm proud of you. Mary smiles, a quiet sense of peace settling over her. She's made it this far, and no matter what, she'll keep going, because she knows who she is now, and that's all that matters.